one.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I hope everybody is well out there and your families are well. I'm sure there's a little bit of cabin fever at this point. I know we're all getting a little bit tired of this and just need to keep forging on. Just wanted to share a few thoughts with you this morning and partly picking up on some of the themes that we discussed a few weeks back. And then I'm going to turn it over to Tim, who's going to relay some of the things that the BD group has been working on. Start with a brief financial update through the first quarter. We had 11.1 million of revenue. We are running just ahead of budget by about 226,000, and that represents 9% growth over last year. Our budgeted hours are over budget. That's not necessarily a goal, but certainly indicates that we've all been working hard. Our rate per hour is just under our budget by about $5, but still just ahead of where we were last year at this point at 146. And I would tell you that I think all in, we had a really good, strong first quarter. Obviously, there's only 2 weeks of that was really within our work from home period. But overall, like I have to say, I think we remain optimistic about the rest of 2020. Yes, there probably are going to be some challenges ahead. I'll talk a little bit about some of those, but I think we are also doing our best to see opportunities out there for us to shine in this environment. And Tim's going to talk about some of those in the marketing update. As you recall, last time I talked a little bit about Johnson Lambert's revenue base and perhaps our revenue base being a little bit more stable from some other firms out there. I know we all are either starting to hear about or read about, or perhaps we even have friends in the industry that have been laid off. There's been reductions in compensation and hiring freezes and other things that have happened in the industry. So again, I just wanted to circle back to some of the differences in our revenue base versus some of those. And I'll take you back to 2019 and just a little review of our revenue. 78% of our 2019 revenue was from A&A. As we all know, vast majority of that A&A work is recurring revenue. We do a great job at keeping our clients. 14% of that 31.6 million was from tax. A good bit of the tax work is recurring year to year. They do have a piece of consulting work that they need to fill each year. And then the BAS and Reg groups made up in total about 8% of the firm's revenue. And I would just rough estimate maybe half of BAS's revenue is non-recurring, and really all of the regulatory group's revenue is non-recurring. So, just rough estimate, if I was to parse through the numbers from last year, maybe 2.75 million of what we recorded in 2019 would be non-recurring revenue. And that's, of course, the piece of revenue that those teams hustle to replace every year. Looking forward to 2020, you roll that 2.75 million forward, and we were probably expecting about 3.5 to 4 million in revenue. And I think we will absolutely replace a good amount of that revenue, or will have replaced by the end of the year. Is there some risk in the latter half of the year that we don't pick up all of what we were looking for? Sure, I think there's a risk there. But if you take a look at some of those consulting pieces, tax consulting work is certainly going to ebb and flow throughout the year, but there are transactions that happen and support that we need to provide to current and prospective clients every year. So I think there's a good piece of that will happen. The regulatory exams are mandated by regulation. So our job there is really just to get in front of enough regulators, establish those relationships. And the reg team has done a really great job lining up exams for the year. Just got 6 risk retention group exams just the other day. Some of those are 2018 exams, and those need to be done by June of 2020, 18 months out. So they, bottom line, have done a good job, I think, filling up their schedule. And the BAS team has been certainly going to be busy through Q2. They're looking to move work forward, being creative on opportunities, and maybe even doing some work on some areas that they don't have not traditionally worked in. I think that's great. I think they're showing a lot of creativity. So I think, the bottom line there is, if we have some sort of slowdown in the consulting part of our revenue, it's totally manageable. It doesn't keep me up at night, nor should it you. I found online a study of the revenue of the big four and the second tier firms that are out there. And so again, I'm just kind of trying to differentiate how our revenue base is a little bit different. The big four and the second tier firms, their A&A practices are making up somewhere between the low 30s in percentages to low 40s in revenue. BDO had the highest percentage of A&A revenue at 49%. And so, what makes up the difference? They have sizable tax practices, but I think the major difference is the consulting revenue, the mass, and call it BAS in our environment. That's just a hugely different environment than we operated in, and certainly that has served us well. So again, I just want to go back and circle back to that and differentiate, some of our revenue bases versus those. And so, on this call this morning, I certainly wanted to be clear, we have not talked about layoffs. We are not considering layoffs. We are not considering reductions in compensation. So just, I think employers are worried about finances, employees and families are worried about finances. So I'll say it again, we're not considering layoffs, not considering reductions in compensation. Having said that, I think it'd be foolish to say that we're immune to any impact from this. And so just some things that, we as partners and you all should be aware of as well. We could see some not-for-profit clients struggle in the next year and beyond. We all have seen some of these major conferences being canceled, and those are, of course, they're major revenue generators. We could have a handful of insurance companies struggle or get purchased. On the other hand, there's going to be some insurance companies that have done well. And in fact, it's nice to see those stories of the auto insurers, some of them voluntarily, some of them being forced to, but give back some premiums due to the reduction in claims. Talked a little bit last time about our cash position. We've come into this in really the best possible cash position we could be in. Kudos to the whole finance team as well as the billing folks. We still need to watch cash like a hawk. We will no doubt see some slowdown in some payments, but again, I'm feeling confident about this. We just need to stay on top of it and ask for all of your help in doing that. As we look ahead to 2020, yes, fee increases could be harder to come by. I would like to think that our efficiency project will continue to help us move along our efficiency measures. As an aside, we do have phase 2 of an efficiency project that we're just kicking off. And, that was an expense to the firm that we just felt like we need to keep pushing on efficiency. Doing that A&A work as efficiently as possible is absolutely a high priority for us. And I think, this is going to involve some technology, Dave and his group, Diane and Mag. I think we're going to point to some exciting things that we're doing there. Don't have time to update you on that this morning, but I think you can look forward to hearing more about that from Dave, Diane, and Mag. In terms of actionable things that we are doing right now, we have asked Goodwin to come up with a revised projection of 2020 income. He's going to spend maybe half an hour with each of the practice leads, just kind of pushing on some of those areas of the budget, the unknown revenue or the expected sales that we have in the budget every year to fill up the revenue for the year. We'll be able to haircut some of our expenses. We have some absolute known expenses that we're not going to incur, and we got some highly probable expenses that we won't incur. So asking just for that revised projection of income. But again, I remain really quite optimistic about 2020. We are also asking for an early projection of 2021 revenue expenses, and we'll probably make some conservative assumptions in there, something like 2% revenue growth. We'll manage the expenses as carefully as we can, but really just trying to be proactive here and look ahead to 2021. We are asking for reasonable cost containment on expenses. Again, this is just sort of out of an abundance of conservatism until we see how the rest of the year plays out. With respect to the holiday parties, if there is ever a year that I want to have holiday parties throughout the firm, this is absolutely it. And hopefully, we all get a chance to do that. We are asking at this point in time, if the groups have not signed contracts for holiday parties, it doesn't make sense at this particular point to go ahead and do that. We'll have plenty of opportunity. I'm sure hotels and restaurants will be jumping at the bit to sign contracts later in the year. If you have already signed contracts, We're just asking that we be knowledgeable of the cancellation dates. Again, not asking that those be canceled, and the intention is really to go forward with those things, but just trying to be reasonable at this period in time. And other major expenses we're identifying and just making sure that it's the right decision to go forward with those, or perhaps scale them back. All of this is done out of an abundance of caution and just trying to protect the Johnson Lambert balance sheet for the remainder of the year. I'll tell you, I mean, we're going to do everything we can to operate in a business as usual basis in terms of raises and promotions as we go throughout the rest of the year. You know, if by chance we projected deteriorating results in 2021 or beyond, yes, we would have to react to that. I would tell you that any decisions that we make will recognize that we are stewards of the firm, and what that has always meant to me is that we need to hand off Johnson Lambert to the next generation of partners, employees, and better than we found it. And, you know, having being fiscally responsible is certainly part of that. But, you know, what I can tell you is that if we make any economic adjustments going forward, the partners will absolutely be on the front end of that. Again, I want to leave you with, I think we're really confident about 2020. We're doing some estimation of 2021 and beyond. I think Johnson Lambert is probably positioned better than the vast majority of firms out there. And Tim's going to talk about some of the unique things that they're thinking about to be able to respond in this environment. Just a couple of random items here to close with. The HR team has done a great job just sort of game planning for the ELITE program and summer internships. Again, I think that's an area where we can look to differentiate ourselves versus competitors. We know some of those programs have canceled. You know, the ask was, you know, make this a valuable experience for these interns or the ELITE program folks. And if we can make it a valuable experience, let's go ahead and do that, keep the pipeline open. So I think they've done a great job game planning for that. We're going to delay the start of the internships a little bit, but they are going to happen. PCOB inspection, they offered us the opportunity to delay that inspection. We said, absolutely not, bring it on. They once again inspected the Geico profit sharing engagement, and that whole team did a wonderful job, you know, documenting that file. I know Sarah McConnell and Lauren Finley did an outstanding job responding to the PCOB's question, but as Diane always says, you know, being successful in these efforts really starts, you know, well before when the PCOB arrives. It's our QC standards, it's our processes, it's our documentation in the file. So we will have no public comment. Once again, don't expect the report to be issued for about a year. It is about 3 years old at this point, and clients do occasionally ask for that. There's a non-public section of the report that we'll have a full copy of that will say that we had a word out of place in one particular form letter. So, you know, it is what it is. It's kind of a silly comment, but again, the team did a great job here. We got a great inspection report, and just thank you all for doing so well on that. May and June travel, you know, those visits are unlikely to any clients. I think we said last time, certainly need to think about working just as we are now through the June time period. I know that the EBPs have some unique issues, and our EBP leaders are thinking about how to handle that. I know there's sensitive data that needs to be transferred back and forth. And, you know, I think that EBP group has done a great job of challenging yourself in prior years and not having all those things issued at deadline. And just ask that we do whatever we can to keep up the good work there. Office openings, you know, it's really too early to think about when we might, you know, open offices, but we are convening our COVID response team next week to discuss office return and what we might need to do to make you all comfortable in returning to the office. And I think, you know, certainly we'll be looking at state and local health guidelines. One thing I would tell you is that there will be no mandatory report back to the office date. You know, the offices are open, you know, June 15th, and we want to see everybody there. That's not the way, you know, this will work. We may need to think about some creative things like having an A and B group to start, just so in those offices where there are, you know, 30, 40 employees, we don't have people sitting real close together. So those are all the things we're going to kind of try to game plan for next week, and we'll do as good as we can on communicating back to you on some of the things that we anticipate implementing. It's been really apparent that everybody is working hard to get our deadlines met to serve our clients, and I think we've just responded in a terrific manner, and obviously we're going to just need to keep this up as long as we need to. But I want to thank each and every one of you, all of our groups. Everybody's done an outstanding job helping us respond effectively to this. So with that, I will turn it over to Tim to talk about BD.
Thank you, John. Welcome to my basement office, everyone. I guess good morning, everyone. I guess, well, it's for the southern offices. Good morning, y'all. I've been practicing that word. My sister lives in North Carolina now. My favorite motivational quote that I use during difficult times is from a movie that most of you are way too young to know, but in Animal House, there's a great speech about how America responded when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor. But I don't know if that would resonate well with this group. I think I saw something from Albert Einstein recently that a quote says, "In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity," and I think that's the way that our firm has always thought of things. Again, most of you were not around back in 2008 and 2009, but those were some financially difficult times. And while other firms contracted and even sometimes went away, what did Johnson Lambert do? We opened 2 offices and started the Bass practice. And so it's those times that we think creatively. I think Debbie Lambert's raised us all well to think that way. I think and that's what we're doing right now. I will tell you that our BD group has been working tirelessly. I was telling John before this, I think I've been on the phone, and we've been on the phone the entire week, it seems like, or a Zoom call or a Google Hangouts. It's been incredibly busy. But we've just been generating some phenomenal ideas. And so we shared with the partner group last night some slides, and I'm going to speak to some of the more significant points of those slides to the firm today. One thing we probably didn't share, and I can't remember the timing of when we shared and what we did share, but we obviously developed our sales goals for the year, and this was obviously pre-COVID-19. But we developed our sales goals of about 7.1 million of sales for the year. After some thorough review about practices, offices, as you know, we're looking at offices a little differently in terms of pods, grouping offices together. I'll say year to date, we're actually ahead of where we were last year in sales. And we are close to 1.6 million right now in actual known sales. Even more exciting than that, the known sales is looking forward. Right now, we've got over $3 million in actively nurtured pipeline or tier 1 targets. And what that means is, while we may not have the RFP yet, we're working hard. We think we're going to get something out of that. In RFPs we have submitted, we're waiting to hear back on 1.5 million of sales. And again, that covers audit, tax, consulting, regulatory, you name it. So there are a lot of great things going on. Yes, some RFPs will be delayed. We've already had that issue come up a couple of times where they said, you know what, I know we said this to you guys in February, but we're going to hold off a year. That's going to happen. But I still think there's a lot of activity. The phone is still ringing hard. One thing that was, Courtney made a good point in a call this week. As you recall, starting January 1st of this year, we rolled out what we called our pick roles. And in that, we had a BD group and a client service group. And the timing could not have been better, frankly, in terms of that responding to this the situation that we're in. Our BD group has met on a monthly basis heading into the end of last year. Then it had an in-person meeting in January in Chicago, right as this pandemic started, actually. We formally developed a pipeline. We developed best practices, processes around responding to proposals. We've been working as a group really hard, and we were really prepared coming into this year. And we continue to work hard and meet formally and informally. Again, this week we probably have met, well, not as an entire group, but some one-on-one times, at least 3 or 4 times this week. Back to John's comment about how we're working in this remote environment. We are doing a great job, and we are just delighting clients. One of the things we had a lot, at least I did in our office, had a lot of March 31st deadlines. And as you think back in the timeline, I think we started working remotely probably early second week in March, first week in March, can't remember exactly. But and we got some incredible feedback from our clients about how seamlessly it went. And I had 2 clients that even said that our audit process was even better than it has been before by working remotely. And so we are collecting client testimonials right now. Marketing's gathering those, and we're going to use those for future marketing purposes. Because that is not the story from all firms, frankly. I was on an audit committee meeting call or Zoom meeting, whatever you call it, yesterday actually. And the audit committee chair is on the chair of a bunch of other audit committees, and he said there was just some disaster situations about firms not meeting deadlines, about firms holding up opinions because of potential going concern issues. And he was just so thankful for the way Johnson Liberts handled this and got the reports out on time and worked with the management team. So again, we are really standing out in this environment currently. The other couple of things, we have two conferences we attend early in the year. Most of our conferences are usually in the June, summer, fall timeframe, but AM Best Review and Preview Conference and it's now called the APCIA, which used to be the PCIA Executive Roundtable, were held in February and early March. And those are two of our most, I'd call it, successful conferences in terms of getting actual RFPs from them. And we did. And I think the opportunities coming from those two conferences alone are pretty incredible. And so at least we got through some stuff. I know we're going to talk a little bit about likely some future virtual conferences, and I have a tough time wrapping my head around how to network in those. But I think we at least got through a couple things that are propelling some of these RFPs and wins coming through. We're seeing wins. The other thing we've talked about, and John mentioned, we're going to have probably some revised budgets. Obviously, we're not traveling; we're spending some less money on marketing. We're probably going to reach out to call our tier 1 targets and send some more intentional gifts to their homes, knowing that they're working from home. Obviously, there's some things to navigate around getting home addresses, but I think we're going to send some barbecue, some lobster, there's things that you should work from home. I mean, comfort food and food in general is hard to come by sometimes, and obviously wine and other things. And so the BD group's coming up with a list of about 3 to 5 called tier 1 or hot prospects that will be intentionally reaching out to with a more specific and personal gift in the next few weeks. The other thing, we had a call with Clearwater, our friends at Clearwater recently, a couple weeks ago now, just to ask them how they're working in this current environment, what they're doing. Are they marketing hard? Are they leaving people alone? But more, we talked about preparing for virtual sales and using technology as opposed to being in person for these finalist meetings. And so our BD group has met a couple times on it. We're working with Dave. We're looking at the different technologies that we'll be able to use. I think it's very important that we are very well prepared to be presenting in a virtual environment. I know Paul and Andre and their teams have already done one for not-for-profit proposal, but it's different. I love the in-person meetings. I'm probably less formal than most in terms of unscripted, and I want a dialogue. But in reality, we can't do that because we'll be just talking over each other and muting and unmuting. And so what we're doing as the BD group is in the next 2 weeks, we are doing dry runs, called dry runs of proposals, in terms of not actual ones we have in place now, but ones we've already responded to, but practicing as if we were going through a virtual scenario. I think it's important that we learn technology. We know how to structure it in terms of there's a point person or there's 2 point person, who's moving the slides. I think these RFPs are going to start falling fast. I want us to be completely prepared and professional in the way we handle these virtual proposals. And so we'll be obviously pulling in the client service partners and other people that would be generally part of a proposal presentation as well once the BD group practices and gets better on our own. The other thing we're seeing, Adam Dubuque is I guess represents the captive industry, and they're seeing still a ton of captive formations, and it's great. I mean, and our name always slips onto those applications, and so there's a lot of great activity there. John mentioned there will be some niches that will face challenges. I mean, the consulting, like John said, the consulting or non-attest work, or some of those funds and insurance companies will dry up. But again, we're doing everything we can to talk to our clients, and I'll mention a couple of things later on that. We're a very nimble firm. I mean, you guys saw how fast that Brandy and her team were able to prep and conduct a thoroughly professional CARES webinar that was well received. I think we got over 400 registrants, maybe just a couple less that actually attended. We are able to respond quickly to change and to be able to communicate not only to our clients but our industry through webinars. The other unique thing about Johnson, John mentioned that our annuity work makes us different. The other thing is our intentional approach to focusing again, 75 to 80% of our revenue on the insurance industry. I came across something, I think I saw in the AM Best Wire or something. I'm not sure where I found it, but Standard & Poor's, S&P, they do a lot of analysis. They do a lot of things, but a lot of it's looking at the creditworthiness of companies, but also industries. And they listed out the top 5 most impacted industries because of COVID. And as you can assume, it was the airlines and retail and hospitality. And then they listed the least 5 industries that are impacted by the current situation. Property casualty insurance was number 1. Number 2 was healthcare REITs. Number 3 was multi-line insurance. And number 4 was life and health insurance. So of the top 5, we got 3 of our industries right there, our sub niches right there. So that makes me sleep better at night, knowing that the global view of things from S&P, that those are the most resilient industries currently, and those industries we serve. I think the one thing we must do is we got to be calling our clients and prospects. We're all in the same situation. We're all well, I'm in my basement. Maybe others have different offices, but we're all sitting at home. We're all looking for that human interaction. We're all looking to talk. Call your clients. Ask them. I learned a word I didn't know I didn't know until last week. At least my wife didn't think I knew what it meant, but it's called empathy. And it really what it is call your clients and just talking to them, seeing how they're doing. I was on a call for an audit client earlier this week, and the team started asking about SureLink request, number this, number that. Let's not start the calls like that. Let's ask people how they're doing, what's going on in their lives. Let's connect with them on a human-to-human level. But those conversations can go into different directions. First, it's the personal thing, but they're going to start. If you get them talking, they're going to talk about other things that not only they're personally facing, but their companies are facing. Their challenges they're facing, and that's when you start listening and think about opportunities, how we can help. It may not be audit related, but it could be something related to technology, and that's where we mention, we've got a great IT team, and maybe you can set up a call with them. Obviously, there's risk of internal control issues with 100% remote work environment. We're talking to our clients about that. How are they handling fraud risk in that scenario? So just call. Just set up a call. Even if you're not doing the audit's already done, just check in and ask how they're doing and see if there's anything else we can do to help them out. Webinars. I think we're going to start pushing more and more webinars. I think that's really right now the best way to communicate on a large scale basis. And so I know Magali and Courtney and her team are working through those, and we're generating more and more ideas about webinars. I think we're preparing for virtual conferences. I think it's not official yet, but I'd be shocked if IASA, which is obviously one of our largest events, actually occurs. They said they're going to give us a May 1st deadline to make a decision, but even I don't see any scenario that we'll be attending. So we're starting to think about right now is one of our favorite things to do every year is host our very famous John Slambert IASA reception, and how to do it in a virtual environment. Right now we have a contract. Our reception was supposed to be held at the Anheuser-Busch Brewery, and that's where we're going to do brewery tours. And so we're talking to them now about how we can have them join a virtual hangout and give us a tutorial on brewing and things of that nature. And so make it interactive, informative, fun. And so it's a brand new way of thinking about things. But again, our team's already thinking about these things. And so I think we're probably ahead of the curve on that. And I think we'll be very well prepared for that. Again, just a concluding remark, great client service right now is the key to marketing. It's the key to our business. We're going to get great referrals and just great recognition in the marketplace for continuing our great client service. One thing Courtney reminded me to mention, and I completely forgot about this, but our BD group earlier this year decided to put a pause on the DDL Cup for this year. Nothing to do with the COVID. This is a decision we made back in December, I think it was. But just there was probably some fatigue with the product. I had some fatigue with it last year myself. And so we'll be rewarding, though, people through other contributions for growth of the firm, and there'll be more information coming out about that later this year. So again, that's our marketing update. If anybody has creative ideas, anything they want to share with us, please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me, the rest of the BD group, Courtney, obviously. We're all just kind of brainstorming in this different time of how to react to the marketplace environment and continue to grow our great firm. So John, that's all I had. If you have any questions that people may have submitted you want to speak to.
Yeah, Courtney can let us know if any of those have come in, and Dave has got one reminder for us here. But I think what Tim's talking about is being sort of just creative, confident, and able marketers. And I think, that's what we need to bring to our whole practice right now. So yeah, really, I think those are great thoughts, Tim, and to the whole BD team. Dave, are you available for your one reminder?
Yeah, I sure am. Hopefully you can hear me. I just wanted to remind everyone, I know Akbar sent out a message last night about our Caseware files. We've had a couple of larger Caseware engagements have issues with their Caseware file recently, and I just want to provide some best practices to everybody, just reminders to make sure that we're being cognizant of what we're doing when we are working on these files. So it's critically important that you, when you're finished doing your work on these files, that you actually close them down overnight. We do need to back them up. And if they're open, the ability for us to perform the backup, we can still back them up. However, the reliability of that backup is impaired. So please, 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 please close your Caseware files when you're completing your workday. It helps us get a full backup of these files and also helps with the integrity of the file overall. Another point to make here is that we're seeing gigantic Caseware files. We've seen really, really big ones that are a result of just really large recycle bins. I know that a lot of engagement teams keep items in the recycle bin in the Caseware file to make sure that you have everything before you close down the entire engagement or you sign off on everything. My ask would be that if there are items that you can delete, please take the opportunity to delete those items out of the recycle bin. We're going to put out some guidance on the history files that folks are having in their Caseware files. These are the ability to go back and reference documents that have been changed, added, or manipulated in some way that's inherent to the Caseware application. We're going to put out some guidance on that just to make sure that everyone's aware of the settings that need to be in place there and what the impact to the Caseware file can be. If you have history settings that record every event that happens in a Caseware file and you have a really large Caseware file, it's going to make that file balloon in size and potentially impact its reliability. Basically, the ability to open it over time is reduced if the file gets to be a really large size. So we'll put out some guidance on that, but just a reminder for everybody to make sure that you are closing out of the Caseware application if you finish your day, so you're not leaving Caseware files open. And then just to take a look through your recycle bin to see if there are some items that you can delete before you actually finish your engagement. So that's all I had. You can always submit a Zendesk ticket if you have any questions on that. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Dave. I suspect maybe people get distracted at the end of the day with kids, or you get the honey-do list that you're supposed to be working on. They just forget to close out those files. But yeah, just leave you with thank you to everybody for all that you're doing, and that we'll need to do in the next few months. So I think the word that I would use from the partner group is just proud. We're proud of how we've all responded. So with that, happy Friday, and have a good weekend, and we will talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.